Hello, and welcome to this introduction to studying A-level psychology at Derby Cathedral School. In this video you will find out about the course content, how it's examined, and how studying psychology will benefit you. So, why study psychology? Psychology is the study of behaviour, so it helps us to explore reasons why we behave as we do. It therefore helps us to understand ourselves, our friends and colleagues, as well as the wider society in which we live. We examine questions about mankind's ability to commit acts of atrocities and our capacity for love and forgiveness. It encourages us to find explanations and solutions to social issues such as crime and health, education and employment. It pairs well with subjects such as English, history, criminology, sociology, RE and business. However, it's important to remember that it is a science, and therefore studying biology and chemistry can also be a good match. At DCS, we will be using the AQA exam board. The course structure is easy to follow. It is split into 3 units, each being examined at the end of Year 13, through 3 exams. Units 1 and 2 are taught in Year 12, whilst Unit 3 is taught in Year 13. Each exam is split into further topics, and each topic is assessed through a multiple choice section, short answer questions, and a long answer question. When studying psychology, it is important to understand that there are different approaches. These are essentially the focus for the research, the beliefs about the possible reasons for the behaviour, and therefore they direct the study. The AQA syllabus includes studying the psychodynamic approach, for which scientists such as Freud are famous, the biological approach, which examines the impact of genes and hormones on behaviour, the cognitive approach. This examines the way in which our brain functions to store memories, the social approach, which considers how we behave in groups, and so how our behaviour is impacted by others. And finally, the humanist approach, which considers a person as an individual. These approaches can be better understood when we think of one of the most famous debates in psychology, the nurture-nature debate. This poses the question, are we biologically driven to behave as we do, or is behaviour learnt through experiences? The different approaches can be placed along this line to demonstrate which side of the debate the approach leans towards. For example, the biological approach very much believes that nature is responsible. We are naturally born in the way that we are, and therefore we behave as we do because of our genetic maps. Within these approaches, we can ask some interesting philosophical questions that become even more interesting psychological research projects. For example, are we genetically predisposed to commit acts of evil? If we believe that hormones drive all behaviour, then we are likely to answer yes to this question. What about the cognitive approach? How reliable are eyewitness testimonies? We use them all the time in courts of law. Are our memories photographic? If we can reliably say, no, they're not, why do we accept eyewitness statements? In terms of the psychodynamic approach, we can explore this question. How does repression affect personality? If we hide traumatic events, does our behaviour become problematic? Do we need to talk about those events to help resolve those problems? This can help us understand how we can approach mental well-being. Within the social approach, we might ask this question: should punishment be used as a deterrent? This question is relevant to so many aspects of our life: parenting, teaching, employment, law and enforcement. If punishment doesn't work, why do we use it? And finally, the humanist approach. Does free will exist? Do you make your own choices about how you act? This examines all kinds of important questions about indoctrination and choice. In Year 12, we study Units 1 and 2. On this slide, you can see the sections and marks awarded for each part within the 2 exam papers. Each of the topics in Unit 1 are worth 24 marks each. You can see from this slide which approach they each focus on. So social influence obviously deals with the social approach and explores ideas such as conformity, authority, obedience, resistance, and social change. The cognitive approach focuses on our memory, and we look at memory models and how we're able to remember and forget certain information. We consider how accurate our memory is, and we do explore eyewitness testimonies. The attachment theory section of this unit looks at the humanist approach, and in doing so, we consider stages of attachment. And we look at experiments that have done through attachment in animals. We consider maternal deprivation and how this varies from different cultures. And finally, within this unit, we look at a range of approaches when we study psychopathology. And in this, we look at more of an application of some of these approaches. And we look at how our mental health can be supported through understanding these ideas. We look at phobias, and we look at techniques for supporting that through CBT and drug therapy. It is important to remember that psychology is a science. Therefore, the research methods, the ways in which psychologists test their theories, are very similar to those methods you have used in science lessons. However, rather than examining how chemicals or objects react, we examine and observe how humans behave. This part of Unit 2 is worth 48 marks. Within Unit 2, we also study the biological approach, and we look at a range of approaches in psychology considering different debates and issues. The final unit, taught in Year 13, draws all of the approaches together and requires you to apply your knowledge to key issues in real-life situations. Within this unit, your class teacher will choose a topic from option A, one from option B, and one from C for you to study. This will depend on their area of expertise. Let's have a taster then of how our lessons are delivered and how we explore these investigations. We'll start with a question, such as this question. What percentage of people would administer an electric shock of 300 volts to someone that they had never met because that person made a mistake? This is a question that a famous psychologist, Stanley Milgram, asked in response to the Nuremberg trials. He wanted to find out why people followed orders to commit such acts of atrocity. So what do you think he found? In the experiment that he conducted, 100% of people flicked the switch to 300 volts. 65% flicked it to 450 volts, enough to kill. Within the biological approach, Eysenck wanted to answer this question. To what extent can hormones, the endocrine system, be used to assess the likelihood of a person committing a violent crime? So he created a theory about personality and how it is influenced by our hormones. His experiment suggests that there is a strong likelihood that a person's predisposition to commit a violent crime can be predicted based on where they fall on his personality trait. What about cognitive approach? Let's return to that question about the reliability of eyewitness statements. Bartlett conducted research that he said proved that eyewitness statements are easily influenced by leading questions. He called this his reconstructive memory research, and within this, he told a group of people a story and asked them to repeat that story. He found that depending on the person's schema or the questions that they were asked, their answer changed. their recall of the story was different. Let's test that theory for a second. You can see that I've removed a list of words. What number was sleep? Let me give you a hand. Was it number 4, number 5, or number 6? You can see now that sleep isn't even on that list. But were you led by my questions to say that it was number 4? Did you muddle up snore and doze? Because snore begins with the same letter as sleep and doze has a similar meaning. The words have been on this screen the whole time, but were you paying attention to them? Had you even processed them? How could this link to how reliable your memory is when it comes to eyewitness testimonies? This is the type of research that we will conduct in a psychology lesson. But we mustn't get too carried away with believing these theories despite being faced with famous psychologists' research. We must instead evaluate how reliable their research is. Psychology is a science, and we will teach you how to be objective about the research you learn and, indeed, the research you conduct yourselves.